take you to get proficient at playing baseball? It takes a while, right? Yeah, right. So like the key subtle differences and like a G versus a G flat. Right? It takes it's minute changes in how you're putting pressure on the chords. It takes quite a while, right? Or to play like the violin or play, especially a string instrument, right? It takes a long time to do. Those are what we call fine motions. Okay. So you send a nerve signal from your brain down your spinal cord to an individual nerve, to an individual motor unit. Okay. So this nerve signal, which we call an action potential, we'll get into that later, makes its way down to the end of what's called a synaptic end bolt. At the end of the synaptic end bolt are neurotransmitters. In this particular case, the neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. Okay? Acetylcholine is released across this little gap between the synaptic end bulb and the sarcolemma called the synaptic cleft. On the end of the sarcolemma is this thing called the motor end plate. Neurotransmitter will go across and it'll bind to those ligand-gated ion channels. Ligand meaning chemically gated. Okay? So the acetylcholine will tell the motor end plate, the sarcolemma, to open up, let a bunch of sodium in, a lot of potassium out, causing an electrical impulse, which we call an action potential, on the actual muscle cell. Okay? So then a bunch of calcium is going to be released from these T tubules down into the sarcomere. You guys with me so far? Right? You can watch the crash course video if you need to. It does a good job explaining it. Okay? Okay, here we go. Okay. So calcium goes into the individual sarcomere. Okay? Exposes the myosin binding site. It connects to the troponin tropomyosin complex, exposing the myosin binding site. The myosin head, which has already been stretched into a activated position, because it took ATP and hydrolyzed it into ADP, connects to the myosin binding site. There's then what's called a power stroke. The head goes like this. When it goes like this, the myosin and the actin head slightly move past each other. ATP comes off, or the ADP comes off, another ATP comes in and does what? Unattaches it, cocks it, gets it ready to go again by hydrolyzing it into ADP, right? Then it attaches again, does another power stroke, moves a little bit further past each other, another ATP comes in, gets hydrolyzed, takes it off, attaches again, moves it a little bit close, a little bit further towards each other, right? So as this happens, what happens? The individual sarcomere decreases in length. The next sarcomere decreases in length. The next sarcomere decreases in length, right? Muscles attached to a bone. As the muscle shortens, it pulls one bone towards another, causing a muscular movement. Kind of with me on this? Okay. Right. So for every time that a myosin head attaches and shortens it, there are 2 ATP. So this is an extremely metabolically expensive and energetic process. This is why you can burn a significant amount of calories by doing a vigorous physical activity. Right? So for example, you run a marathon, right? You're basically burning a day's worth of calories running a marathon. Right? So 3 to 4 hours, you can burn an entire day's worth of calories running a marathon. Right? So that's basically what's going on here. So just watch the crash course video, guys. It does a really good job of explaining all of this. Okay, now, this will continue to go on so long as 3 criteria are met. Number 1, you're continuing to get a signal coming from the brain, action potentials coming from the brain. Number 2, you have enough calcium to continue to expose the myosin binding site. Number 3, you continue to have enough energy in the form of ATP in order to continue to have the myosin heads attach, do the power stroke, and then disengage and then come up again. Okay? So as long as those 3 criteria are being met, this muscular action will continue going. Who here goes to the gym, lifts, or has done a gym workout, right? So, right, so you're lifting, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, right? You can't get that 10th rep up. What's going on there?
You're running out of ATP.
You're running out of ATP, right? You set the weight down for a couple of seconds, and then what do? Right? You can hammer out some more, so your body can quickly replenish its ATP source. Now, what happens if you exercise at a high enough intensity for a long enough period of time? We can have muscles and tears in your muscles. What else? Muscle strain and tears.
Pass out.
They can pass out from exertion. What else can happen? They can cramp up. Right. Eventually, you just, right, no matter how long you rest between sets, what's eventually going to happen? There's just nothing left, right? So you've depleted, right? So as you start to reduce your ATP stores, you start to have what we call, right, fatigue, right? And then you can have what we call exhaustion, right? So I'm going to show you guys what true physiological exhaustion looks like. Who here is familiar? We'll watch this and then we'll go to a little break. Who here is familiar with the Ironman triathlon?
When you attend Maricopa Community Colleges.
Hey, you guys got Captain Master or something else. Okay. So who here is familiar with the Ironman triathlon? Okay, so the Ironman triathlon, the World Championships are held every year in Kona, Hawaii. Right, so an Ironman triathlon is a 2.1 mile swim, 110-mile bike ride, and then you run a marathon, right? So why anybody would voluntarily do, like, that seems like an effective, you committed breaking and entering, we're going to make you do this sort of a thing, right? So, even if you're a world-class athlete, right, you're doing this, like the world-class men are doing this in about 8 hours, right? So they're going basically all out for 8 continuous straight hours. The ladies are doing it in about 10.5 hours. Average person, right? You and I, guys, we went out there and did this. We'd probably be out there for 15, 16 hours before we finally finish it. And that's after working out for many, many months to get in shape for it, right? So this happened in 1997. So this is Sean Welch and Winnie Ingram, who were both professional triathletes, right? So this is what they did for a living. By the way, if you win the Ironman, you get like 150 grand. So it's enough money, you don't have to get a real job. So if you win this, you can, between that and sponsorship, you don't have to get a job, you can just do this, okay? So this is, so they've already done the 2-mile swim, the 110-mile bike ride, and they're about 100 yards away from the finish line of the 26 miles. So watch this.
Sean Welch is in a desperate spot. Her body has run out of fuel. No calories to burn. Systems shutting down. The legs are there, you just can't feel them. The eyes still see, but through a
She's 50 yards from the finish line. She can literally see the finish line up ahead of her.
At this point, Sean Welch is aware of 2 things. The finish line is so close, and someone is so close behind. After more than 140 miles, it's come down to less than 100 feet to that damn line.
She's 10 yards from the finish line now.
Just yards behind, her stalker appears. It's Wendy Ingram.
So she's been leading Wendy the entire race.
It's a skin ball. I can only imagine. It's like a nightmare.
So that's what we would call true physiological exhaustion, right? So these are professional athletes, these are tough ladies, right? They're just, right, what's going on there? They're trying to contract their muscles. They don't even have enough energy left in their body to contract with enough force to overcome gravity, right? So that's what we would call true. So next time somebody tells you they're exhausted, show them this. That's what true exhaustion looks like. This is the literal physiological definition of exhaustion, meaning there is the inability to maintain volitional contraction, right? So no matter how desperate, right? They desperately want to continue, right? But they literally, there's not enough energy left in the system to maintain enough force in their muscles in order for them to contract their muscles to get muscle.
Is that even healthy for them?
No, this is not healthy. No, this is not
They
healthy.
can't take like the glucose.
They can, yeah, absolutely. And these ladies and all of these athletes eat while they're, again, right, a world class. So the world record for the men is like 8 hours and something, right? Right. These guys are eating while they're out there, right? They're eating the goo and other kinds of stuff like that. But you know, there's literally like there's a limit to how many calories you can consume while you're, right? I mean, who wants to eat a big old plate of spaghetti and meatballs while you're in the middle of a 110 mile an hour bike ride, right? Like, there's only so much you can eat without getting your stomach upset while you're out there, right? So they're burning 10,000 calories and consuming 2,000 while they're out there. Yeah, so the body just kind of just shuts down at some point, right? So that's what's going on there with that. So, all right, let's take a break. Come back about 8:20. I'm gonna hop upstairs real quick, guys. Grade your guys' scantron. I apologize, I didn't get them done sooner.